Hi everybody, it's Hero. Welcome to another Dragonflight video. Okay guys, it is time to focus on what all healers should always be focused on. Am I right? It's damage. No, just kidding. But I'm going to go through what I think is a great approach whenever you're thinking about the new talents, and these will change, I'm sure. But the question of how does a healer do damage, what options are actually available to you, and what is it going to cost to gain access to these tools? This is always a great thing to do. So what I've done is I've laid out the tree with what I think are the required talent selections, more or less, and the leftover points to give you a damage profile that is complete for the Resto Shaman. That leaves us with 8 points on the class side and about 7 points on the spec side. I suppose we could take off Cloudburst Totem, since that is technically superfluous to what I'm talking about. But you get the idea. Oh, actually, I can't take it off. I need the point in order to get down. Because I've thought through ERT, and I think it is, technically speaking, a DPS increase. You don't need to use it, but I'm just doing this as a theoretical step to show you all the pieces. On the class side, Lava Burst, Chain Lightning, though I think Chain Lightning need not be taken if you're thinking single target. It's only that we have access to it so that we can get down to Nature's Fury, and it's required to give us our Frost Shock damage. But here are all the pieces that put together all the damage. Lava Burst and Chain Lightning in the first row, Frost Shock in the second row, with a nod towards Maelstrom Weapon. This is a filler piece, but if you're in melee, it will mean that you get to cast quicker lightning bolts or chain lightnings if you are auto-attacking mobs. So that's why it's here. You could also tag Flurry in here as well, potentially, depending on what's going on. So that's the second row. Third row, Fire and Ice. That's technically a DPS increase. And we are going to take Focused Insight only because it is a crap load of healing percentage every time we Flame Shock, which we'll be doing quite a lot of. But the only serious DPS piece here is Fire and Ice. You could have taken Earth Elemental, which is technically a DPS cooldown, but in most encounters, the Elemental doesn't really do that much damage. Then we have some mobility stuff to think through. So I've taken Spirit Walker's Grace and Graceful Spirit in order to get us further in the tree, but they're likely the most useful pieces here. We're moving all the way down to Lightning Bolt. Oh, excuse me, I passed over Nature's Fury. Nature's Fury is giving us 4% crit on our nature spells. That's Lightning Bolt, essentially, and Chain Lightning. Lightning Bolt damage is the next major piece, and then we have a series of nodes that are useful for us in terms of throughput. One is free casts once a minute of something, like a Lightning Bolt. Thunderstorm, which technically has a scalar on spell power at 10%, but it's not really big. We really want to get to Lightning Lasso, which is a 700% spell power coefficient over 5 seconds. So I think of Lightning Lasso in PvE as something which basically reads, do relatively minor damage or medium amounts of damage. You know, you would be filling with lightning bolts or lava bursts if you had nothing else to cast. Over 5 seconds, allowing you to recharge mana, that kind of thing. So technically, Lightning Lasso is probably a DPS increase, but if you think you also would have been casting lava bursts and lightning bolts, just think of it as a CD that is neutral. Still not bad. On the spec side, here's where it gets really interesting. So after the first initial pieces, we have Lava Surge and Call of Thunder or Acid Rain in AoE. I think Call of Thunder is probably slightly better for single target, though I don't know exactly how good the scaling for Acid Rain is going to be. It says 15% spell power nature damage. Obviously, it's just worse than 15% extra lightning bolt damage, but who knows if you have a cleave scenario, which is better. Lava Surge is, of course, as it usually is, giving us free procs, and this is where the lion's share of your passive damage is going to come from. Again, when we're thinking about healers doing damage, the main consideration is how accessible or passive or adjacent to their regular duties is the damage. Is it like we have currently in dungeons for Resto Shamans? Kyrion's Totem plus Earth Ellie's Earthquake. That's about as passive as you get, although in high keys you got to keep the Earth Ellie up. But that's a ton of just passive damage. You don't have to change your playstyle. You just throw out Vesper Totem on a 1 minute CD or less if Brawn comes flying out, and it just does boatloads of damage. Here we are not getting back those pieces, but we still have a lot of cool options. Lava Surge is nice because it helps us to smooth out that passive element, making instant cast lava bursts. Call of Thunder is going to be paired with Stormkeeper. Again, this is interesting. In other trees like Ele, you can get 2 charges. Here we have it shared with Cleanse Spirit and Wind Shear and Purge from Ghost Wolf form. So this is likely a PvP type of choice here. PvE, we very, very infrequently need to be in Ghost Wolf form, running away or hiding behind a line of sight, and still have to do some of our tasks. But this is immensely useful in PvP. Whereas Stormkeeper is just awesome throughput on a 1 minute CD. 2 lightning bolts at 150% damage, amped by improved lightning bolt, amplified by Nature's Fury. All of that is good stuff. Obviously, Call of Thunder also playing into it. So this is technically a DPS increase. We take it. Then we have Master of the Elements, which is as it is on live. It's just a little bit nerfed, I believe. Lava Burst increasing our nature damage. Again, with giant lightning bolts, this is no problem. If you're spending 50% of the raid fight doing damage, this is going to carry a lot of weight. The final major piece is getting a second charge of Lava Burst to make the resets from Lava Surge far more consistent and smooth, as we're used to seeing. Echo's a staple ability. We've used this for a long time. I suspect it also should read Riptide. That's my assumption. If so, it's just a great ability anyways, because getting more Riptides is fine. Finally, there's the question of ERT and whether this is something useful. I think from a damage perspective, if you don't care about mana, and if you're doing a lot of damaging spells, you're not spending a lot of mana, Ever Rising Tide just reads, you get essentially 5% haste, or 10% haste for every 30 seconds for about 8 seconds. So not super impressive. However, it's still 10% haste in those burst windows, so we'll take it. That leaves us with a question of how do you build around this? Like, what build can make use of all of these DPS tools? And I think you're probably able to do quite a few builds. You didn't necessarily have to take Earth and Harmony. We could have been over here on Undercurrent and gone for Wellspring and put it together with Unleashed Life, although that's kind of weird, the whole shield thing. Or just use Deeply Rooted Elements and grab Ascendance as well and track with these 2 things. And do your normal weaving of Riptides, Healing Rains, and Healing Waves. You could also have enough points left over, 7 points here, to go down and get the Primordial tier to snake over here and grab other tools like Downpour and index into Chain Heal a little bit. You could shore up maybe your desire to do full Riptide build with your Primal Tidal core and skip out on the, or maybe you get Primal Tidal and you get, the Deeply Rooted, or Primal Tidal and Primordial Wave, one of those 2 to help kind of mitigate against it. You won't be able to get all 3 if you've indexed into damage, but you can get quite a few. I don't think this works very well for the Chain Heal build, because you need High Tide, and you need quite a few of these other buttons to make it work well, but mostly because Chain Heal is a long cast compared to firing off instant cast Riptides. So my suggestion would be likely to move it towards a Riptide filler build, probably with P-Wave since it's on a CD. You can get it to 30 seconds. You can just guarantee that you have these short burst windows. You can even pair it together with Ever Rising Tide. So you just have ERT into a Primal Wave, and you have Deeply not deeply rooted, excuse me, you have primal tidal core going off. And then every 30 seconds you have a giant burst and you can go back to DPS. But that's what we're looking at on a single target basis, and I think it's going to be pretty strong. Holy Priest, I haven't seen all of the trees, but Holy Priest is the other healer that has this similar kind of payoff where you spend your time damaging rather than casting your healing spell, so it's an either or. Shaman is in that that type of damage profile where, yes, it's passive, but you still have to use GCDs like Lightning Bolt and pressing free Lava Burst to get the damage off. But the Holy Fire build from Holy Priest going down that right side of the class tree looks like it's probably going to rival this idea. But when you put together Stormkeeper with a lot of Lava Burst casts, with some significant amps like improved Lightning Bolt and potentially Lightning Lasso, depending on how good it is, I think Shaman's going to be in a really good spot to do that hybrid work of providing awesome CDs like Spirit Link Totem, maybe providing something like Ancestral Protection Totem, because you just need, in a weird raid environment, a couple of bizarre tools, grabbing a couple of the same thing over here, like awkward tools like Poison Cleansing, and then slamming as much damage as possible while helping. So getting into that middle space between a full DPS and a full healer. I don't know if this is going to be particularly interesting or viable. I just know that these are all of the tools, and they seem like, on paper, solid tools when you don't even think about the scaling, just what kind of interactions they are offering. Thanks, guys, for watching. Let me know in the comments if you had other thoughts about building out a DPS version, single target, of course, for Shaman. This can function pretty easily for AoE as well. Let me know what you think. We'll talk to you soon.